doesn't want a Makita 18-volt power file finger sander thingamajigger? Anyway, we'll dig in deep in just a moment. I'm Tim Johnson. You're watching Shop Tool Reviews. Okay, this is the Makita XSB01. There's another model number for other parts of the country we'll cover in just a moment. But basically, this is a 3/8 by 21 inch belt sander. It's actually available in a 1/4 inch model, which is a little bit thinner, and a 1/2 inch model, which is a little bit thicker. And again, we'll talk about the details in a moment. But basically, it's an 18-volt small belt sander. Some people call these finger sanders. Some people call them power files. We've touched on that before, but regardless, this thing has many names. But let's dig in and actually look at the cool things about this and any uncool things as well. Then we'll use it, and then we'll come back as always, talk about price, warranty, and what we thought of it. This is the Makita 18-volt brushless 3/8 inch belt sander, also known as a finger file, also known as a finger sander, power file. There's several names, but basically Makita just calls this a 3/8 inch belt sander because that's what it is. It runs a belt and it's a sander. So anyway, 21 inch long belt, and by the way, you can also, I believe, you can get this same tool in a 1/4 inch as well as a 1/2 inch. So this is right in the middle. This is at 3/8 wide. And if I'm not mistaken, you basically just change out the assembly to change those sizes. So maybe you can buy that. I don't know. We'll research that and find out. But here we have the 3/8 inch belt sander. This is the model number XSB01Z. Other parts of the world would know it as the DBS180. I think it's the exact same tool. They would just claim it in millimeters, like your this would be a 9 millimeter, I think, and then your 1/2 inch would be your 13 millimeter or 12 millimeter. But anyway, so here we have our 3/8 inch. Now, some of the features on this. The trigger is just an on-off trigger because we have a variable speed dial down here, and it goes from 1 all the way up to 5, and that's going to vary your speed from 1,960 feet per minute all the way up to 5,600 feet per minute. So you'll see here when I pull the trigger, I can't vary that. It's not varying the RPMs. That's only controlled by the dial down here. So it's pretty much an on-off. Once it comes on, it's going to max speed. So very fast sander at 5,600 feet per minute. One thing I really like about this is it has a trigger lock on. So I can't just push this, but if I pull the trigger, depress that button, and now we're locked on. And now if we're doing a lot of sanding or trying to get in certain areas and I don't want to hold the trigger, I can leave that on. To turn it back off, just pull the trigger and it will turn that off. So that's really great for those longer run times when you're trying to sand areas for a longer time. I like to see that. There's also a trigger lock here that will lock that trigger so you can't depress it either, whether you're putting that in a toolbox or you're stowing it away, well, that'd be the same as putting it in a toolbox. Anyway, regardless, you can lock that trigger on. You can also lock it off with the trigger lock. Another cool feature here. So a couple of cool features we'll cover right here. So number one is the fact that we can we can pivot this arm. So just by loosening this here, I can turn this all the way up to where it's straight up. I can also turn this all the way down here, which is really about a 90-degree swing. Now they claim 160 degrees, and here's why, which I don't think that's fair to say, because once we get past here, the only way to get further is really for stowing this away. And it's a cool feature here, but again, they're claiming 160 degrees. That's not really truthful because once I want to go below here, I have to push in the lock. You see that? So I have to push in that lock to go any further. So now I have to push this over. And if the lock, watch this, if the lock was off so that I can depress that trigger, now watch this. So it locks here, and then I have to flip this switch, but watch what happens. It also depresses the trigger lock there. So to go on down here is really only for stowing away because you cannot depress the trigger and use the tool this way. So even though they claim 160 degrees, there's really only 90 degrees of usable, which again is absolutely fine. It's not like that you're really needing to sand on down here, but just wanted you to know once you do go below there, it's automatically going to depress that lock so that you can't depress the trigger and use that file. But again, the pivoting action, very smooth, and I like just kind of the locking in place. No detents here. You can put it where you need it and then do your sanding. Another really cool feature here that I haven't seen really on very many tools, period. Look right here. So depending on where you need to sand, you can also vary the angle of your LED light. You see the lights on, I can angle it down here or down here. So there's 3 different detent positions depending on where you want to be sanding with your pivot of your arm. You can also adjust your LED light so it's shining in the correct location as well. So pretty cool little feature there on that LED. Right under here is a dust port. So this is just a little rubber plug, and if I want to pull this out, I could neck my dust extraction down and actually pull dust extraction from this. So if I'm sanding a lot of wood, I'm not sure when you would use that, but I'm sure there are applications for doing so. Maybe sanding around balusters and things like that around stairs. That might work out really well where you can pull that dust out of there. Otherwise, if you're using it on metal, something like that, you're probably not going to use that dust port. It also comes with this auxiliary handle here. So if you're in situations where you're really, holding onto this thing tight and wanting to do some precise stuff, then you can put on your auxiliary handle, which, by the way, it does not rotate. You have to put this little tang right here into this little notch right up here on top. And it's kind of a pain to get on there initially, but once you get it on there, there we go. Now it's locked into place, and now we have an auxiliary handle, your secondary handle, where you can't hold that with just one hand, so you need that second hand. I'll take that off so that we can see a little better. Brushless motor, don't know if I covered that, so definitely a brushless motor here, and it is running on their 18-volt platform. Now let's get a quick weight here on this tool. And so I'll leave it. I've got my 3 amp hour battery on here. My 5 amp hour is probably not going to be much heavier than that. And with the battery, looking at 4 pounds, 2 ounces. If we want to go to grams, 1,870 grams. So 1,870 grams, or just over 4 pounds at 4 pounds, 2 ounces. Now, size of this tool, it's really not a small tool, but I kind of like that. This is something that's going to be able to do a lot of work. So, it's not something that's too tiny, that's not going to have a lot of power. This is going to have plenty of power, and we'll show you that here in just a moment. It's almost 12 inches tall, about 11 3/4 inches tall with that 3 amp hour battery. And then the arm itself, from the center of the motor out, it extends about 10 inches, so right at 10 inches. And then as far as your sanding part, you're going to get about 4.5 inches, 4 3/4 inches of actually sanding area to sand on this. And the cool thing is there's really different profiles here that you can sand with. You've got a nice flat bed right here where you can actually sand something flat. You can also use the radius here. And then I'll show you right here where you've got some flex here in this belt where we can use something on that also. Now, Makita offers several different belts for this. In fact, they've got a 40 grit, a 60, an 80, a 100, and a 120 grit. There may be other manufacturers that offer belts as well. And then it says they also have the dust nozzle assembly. And then there it is. There's the arm assembly. So you can get the arm assembly in the 1/4 inch, the 3/8, and the 1/2 inch. And there's the part numbers as well. So that's cool that you can definitely order those different arm assemblies. And so with the same tool, you could have that profile of that 3/8, that 1/4 inch, as well as that 1/2 inch. Very easy to change the belts on this. We're going to flip the lever right here all the way up, and that's going to relieve the tension on this belt, as you see here. So once I lift this up, you'll see the slack come in this belt. There we go. So now we got slack. Let me tighten that down. There we go. And you typically want your battery off as well. And then this is easily going to come right off. And then if we want to put a new one on, same thing. The first thing you want to do, you want to make sure it's all the way on your back pulley and slide it all the way in. Make sure it's past your little guard right here. And then once you do that, you'll put it over the front roller and snap this down, and we're done. Although we need to now track it or actually tune it. So then we'll run it a little bit, and I'll show you here. Tuning this is probably the easiest belt sander I've ever tuned. I'm calling it tuning, tracking, tuning, whatever you want to call this. You'll see here, so if I wanted to take this out of track or out of tune, so now we see some metal showing up over here where the belt's starting to ride over. Very easily, just ease that over. So we're riding in the center of our wheel, in the center of our pad there, and now we're good. So really easy to set the tracking on this tool with that thumb screw right there. Now let's use this thing and see what we think. There are many different ways that this tool can be used and many different materials this can be used on, and we're just going to show you some of them. One may be for wood, so you carpenters out there, you cabinet makers, what have you, there's several different ways you can use this. And so quite frankly, just sanding wood, and you can see how much power this thing will deliver and how quickly it'll eat away. I think I've got a 60 grit on here, it may be an 80. Anyway. So we can quickly sand away any material we need to. And we can use the snout of this to actually eat in. So we're using it to maybe, radius an area or take out, dig into an area, what have you. Or we can use it on the top side and use, again, this profile here with that kind of sanding bed, if you will. So we can use that there, and then there are other ways that we can use right here, this profile here, where we've got a little slack, give a little softer approach rather than giving that hard sanding. And another way may be on a piece of metal or aluminum pipe here, where again, a little softer edge than just sitting on that hard surface. So it will kind of like set the radius, a little bit of that radius of that pipe. So several different ways that you can use the different areas of this sanding arm here. And then even in more metalworking or welding, a lot of times if you want to take either whether it be round pipe or round tubing or rectangle tubing like this, you'll typically have a seam in here where this pipe is made. Well, you got to take that out if you want something to slide inside of there. And so you may have a die grinder to do that or something like this tool. And take out that seam that was originally in that tubing. You can even use it to clean up a gnarly weld. Or even use the radius end to clean up a weld. So several different ways, again, that we can use this. And now I know, listen, I know you automotive guys, you're probably screaming at the screen right now, or at least you body shop guys or you restoration guys are saying, it's for spot welds. Yes, you're right. It works great for spot welds. So if we got a spot weld and we're needing to separate a body panel, okay, let me break this down really, really simply. This is a tool that you probably realize you need or you don't need. And then the question is, do you want to go away from your probably pneumatic powered or air powered or plug-in corded power file sander or finger sander and go to a cordless model? Power-wise, this thing has plenty of power to do whatever you need. It really does. I mean, whether you're grinding out welds, and you're going to know when it's kind of too much for the tool or not, but as far as any other pneumatic sander that I've used of one of these, as well as cordless and corded, this thing is just as powerful as any of those, and it does very, very well. So it's going to hold up to basically anything the belt's going to allow you to do, whether you're grinding welds or grinding wood or sanding wood. what have you, it's going to do very well at. Also very simple to use, very easy to use. I like the fact that you can actually pivot this and put it wherever you need to. Changing belts is very easy. Tracking is very easy, which, by the way, one thing I didn't cover. I didn't really cover about the thickness of this, kind of where you could fit it, where you couldn't. So let's get a quick reading here. So 675, so what's that, 5/8 of an inch? So it's about 5/8 thick here, which means it will easily fit inside of a piece of 1-inch tubing. So if that gives you any indication of kind of how thick that is and what you can fit that into, that may help, because I didn't measure that initially. Sorry about that. Anyway, this price on this thing, you're looking at $279 for a bare tool. So that's probably going to be the gotcha for a lot of people. That's expensive for a bare tool. But if you know what you need, if you know the type of tool you're looking for, you don't have a lot of options when it comes to cordless. And quite frankly, this is probably the most powerful cordless unit I've used in one of these finger sanders, belt sanders. Again, let's not go down that path again, chase that rabbit. Anyway, Makita offers this, as I mentioned, in the different arms. They also have the different belts for this as well, $279. I'm not going to give a good or a bad on that, or what I think of that, because I think that's a fair pricing, that there's not a lot out there in something like this. I think Ryobi has one, but quite frankly, it really doesn't live up to the power of this. And then I think Ingersoll Rand has one that's actually up here on our shelf, but it's a 12-volt model that doesn't have near the power that this does. It's also a lot smaller. So in the form factor that we're seeing here, there's really nothing else other than if you look at pneumatic and corded power winds, and Makita has a corded version of that as well. It also has a 3-year warranty on this. As I mentioned, it's only available in a bare tool. We haven't seen it in a kit price. Check it out. We think it's really cool. If you need it, it's great for grinding out spot welds, which, by the way, when we were using this, it was a little bit shaky because I was trying to use it with one hand because I was trying to get the best shot possible. But again, power-wise, there's no question on this of whether or not it's going to be able to do what you're wanting it to do, as long as you're not pushing it beyond its means of what it should be doing anyway. So check it out for yourself. Again, it's the XSB01. Also, keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you don't mind, would you hit that like button and maybe even subscribe if you haven't subscribed already? But by all means, if you hated our video, give us a thumbs down. But would you let us know in the comments why? Have a great day and keep smiling.